Like, we actually had a message. I don't know if I sent you this. Someone sent me a message. They replied to one of the stories we put up. He called me and then he said sorry, and he sent me a meeting request. What? No to all of this.
Hands and close your eyes. It's midnight, and you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys.
Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestel.
And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun has set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks. That was loud. Thanks for tuning in. Don't know what the hell that was.
Is it an Irish lady with the mop? She's found you, like the Predator.
It was only a matter of time. And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all of the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. I think I already said that? Paul, this is all going very badly. Listeners, I don't know if you heard this. There was a loud noise outside my door just as I was recording this, and or just a moment ago, and it completely threw. Anyways, welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. We're here. This is Paul Bestel. He is my friend.
Hello.
Hello. I am Brennan Storr. I have at least several friends. At least two. How are you doing, Paul? It's just a really weird intro, but it's a weird day, so it's okay.
It is. I'm all right. I'm okay, mate. I'm riding out a mental health storm, but I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm glad to be here. It's been a fun week. I had a nice chat with Adam from Weekly Creep and Houston Strange the other day about some of the stranger locations in and around Texas, which essentially made us talk about Galveston quite a lot and some of the undiscussed history of that, which for people who don't know is still the largest natural disaster death toll in American history. The death toll is anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000. Most conservative estimates put it at 8,000 people were killed that day, which was a quarter of the town's population, and it destroyed over half the town buildings and left another 10,000 people homeless. So overnight, half the population were either homeless or dead.
Man, oh man. Well, folks, you can hear more about that on the next, I assume, the next Mysteries and Monsters.
Yes, that'll cheer everybody up. And to listen to that happy conversation. It's a lot more lighthearted than I've made it sound, but yes, that will be next week's episode with Adam. We had a good old chat about that. It's always nice to spend time in Adam's company. So it was grand.
Adam's a great dude. Folks, if you haven't listened to either Weekly Creep or Houston Strange, check them out. Houston Strange is, both the shows are fun, but Houston Strange, I was really impressed by the level of polish Adam brought to that show. It was really great shit. And life has been nowhere near as interesting for me, although it's had less Texan-related tragedy. As I was telling you, I decided to check out a new gym today because there was a traffic jam blocking my way to my regular gym. So I thought, well, they're going to check out this other place. Well, I won't say exactly where it is. I will say that if you told me it was being preserved by some kind of witch's curse, or that in 1985 someone sold part of their soul to the devil to keep this building mostly intact and unchanged, I would believe you. Some of the machinery was not old necessarily, but bad. And like the bike, as I told you, I kept slipping down. So I kept having wrestle myself up back in my seat to a sitting position. Like a little kid in a high chair, basically, just kept scooching. Yeah. My scooch muscles got a great workout. And then finally I thought, okay, this is stupid. I'm going to they have a seated elliptical. I'm going to give that a try. And that had these paddles that instead of just being sticks that you hang on to, they were kind of stop sign looking things or yield sign looking things. So they're just wide enough that they whop the shit out of you if you're not careful where you put your shoulders when you're pedaling. So I just sat there getting perpetually beaten like I was trying to get on a busy subway. And my shoulders just getting pummeled from either side. And I thought, it's going to look like I got beat up in a nightclub or something. and that's before we get into the deeply suspicious sign-up process and payment process they have, which couldn't be any more suspicious if I had to leave the money in an envelope behind a mailbox, which I then marked with a piece of chalk. Holy man. So yeah, I won't be switching gyms is what we'll say with this. But if I ever need to hide a body, it will be in the many crevices and corners of this building. Actually, a lady friend of mine was looking at working out of this place. I said, look, Hey, here's some pictures of the inside. It's clean, except for the mold. I don't know if I would work out here at night because there's a lot of blind corners. This does not feel... If I am obsessed with a building, that's a bad sign. And so, fair warning. All right, well, on this episode, we are not going to talk about crooked gyms or Paul's brand new PS1 that he just bought. No, we are here to talk about the epic conclusion to our listener Meghan's story. This is This Haunted Life, Part 4. And of course, if you've listened to the last 3 episodes, you know that Meghan has had a lifelong experience with paranormal. And in this installment, we begin with her meeting a medium who can help her train this sense she has and better navigate the world around her. This episode is interesting stuff. It is inspiring stuff as well, I might add. And I'm very excited to get into it. But before we do that, we have to thank our patrons.
This one's for the patrons.
Patrons, we could not do what we do without you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. For real, guys. Without you, I would not have the confidence to screw up the intro the way I did today. Really the worst I've ever done in more than 200 episodes of the show. 227 episodes of the show prior to this, actually. And still keep going. So patrons, you help give me that confidence. And without you, I would be a blubbering mess on the floor.
But you'd be our mess.
Thank you very much. And of course, everyone who's downloaded the Ghost Story Guys, you help make us who we are. But patrons, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube subscribers, you are truly the ones who make this big machine go. And while we'd like to thank every single one of you, right now we are especially going to thank our latest subscribers. They are
Helen Napolitano
and Hillary Talbert. Again, thank you so much from the bottom of our terrible hearts. We couldn't do it without you. And if you would like to get access to early ad-free release, bonus conversations between myself and Paul, additional episodes of shows such as Ghosts I've Met, where I narrate chapters from famed parapsychologist Hans Holzer's 1965 book of the same name, our live stream, Ghost Force shoutouts, and so much more, you can click the link in the show notes, head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or sign up to become a friend of the cabin on Apple Podcasts. All right, my friend, barring any external noises or you and me getting distracted by playing Final Fantasy VII. But before we do all of... Nope, okay, already did the patron shit. Paul, it's falling apart today. We are off the rails. We're just going to take a quick break while I apparently sit down with a cool cloth on my forehead.
I reckon that old woman at the gym was the Fae.
Well, I'm starting to wonder.
Grab some iron, mate.
While I stuff a handful of beets into my mouth.
And a pint of Guinness.
And a pint of Guinness. We're going to take a quick break. Before we get started, I wanted to share a comment we had from one of our patrons, Ella. This was on part 3 of Meghan's story. Ella says, "Wow, the way Meghan describes being watched, I've never been able to put my experiences into words, and she's just done it. I also wanted to scream through my headphones and tell her there are ways to protect herself, so this was a perfect cliffhanger. I'm so excited to hear the next episode." And it is a really great story. It is, I think, one of the longest stretches of text we've ever read on this show, so strap in. Of course, we'll be taking breaks and switching off and chatting in between segments, but yeah, this is a lengthy story, and it is very, very cool. So, Meghan begins. After I listened to Kate's story on the podcast, I continued to listen for a couple of weeks as she helped out on their investigations, proving herself the real deal time and time again as the host fact-checked her information with historical records. As my sightings of spirits and energy bombarded me, I was in my bed, exhausted and trying to relax, when a thought popped into my head. I wonder if Kate has a mentorship program. I didn't think I was a psychic medium. I just wanted to control all the escalation that was happening. I thought about it over the next week until the next episode of the podcast dropped, this time with her Instagram handle mentioned at the end. I looked her up, and lo and behold, she was offering a mentorship program. In the application, just a few questions to fill out about why I wanted a mentorship and what experiences I had with spirits and the paranormal was due in 3 days. I took an extra day to think about if this is what I really wanted and needed, and I decided to go for it. I filled out the application and waited. A few nights later, I was doom-scrolling in the midst of a bout of depression when I heard a scratch in the middle of my wall closest to my bed. I'd only ever heard a scratch inside my wall once before. It was on that same wall just below my bed. I thought it was a rat at first, and sat horrified in the middle of my bed waiting to see something gray and furry scurry across my bedroom floor. No animal surfaced, and I didn't think much of it until that night when I was up late and heard a long scratching noise smack dab in the middle of my wall. There are no neighbors on the other side of this particular wall, so it piqued my interest even more as to what could be making the noise. I waited, expecting to hear the animal scuttle away or further into my wall, but it just stopped. There was one long scratch that lasted the length of the longest wall in my room, and that was it. I shook it off, until a few nights later when I heard the scratch again, as if traveling from a deeper part of the building. It was like I could see it approaching, dragging itself from the kitchen to the hallway, through the living room and into my room via the same wall from the last instance. I could hear it coming closer to where I was sitting, until it stopped right next to where I was in bed. And then it stopped completely. I didn't hear anything scurry back the way it came, nor did I hear it travel past me and into another part of a different wall. The things I would expect if it was an animal. I listened out for it as the days passed, but I didn't hear it again. My depression cleared up and I felt better. I would only hear the scratching again when I was prepared to face it, after I learned the unsettling reason why it had chosen to visit me. As in New York City November settled in, so did something else in my apartment. Once again, I was up late. I was on vacation, just having quit my job at the grocery store, and taking a week off in between starting my new job in a library. For the first time in a while, I felt hopeful, comforted that my life wouldn't be swallowed by work day in and day out. Despite this, my depression was having the time of its life, and it was because of this I found myself laying in bed, staring at my ceiling that swirled with my multicolored string lights. The sharpness of my peppermint candle soothed my brain into a lull. I had almost convinced myself to go brush my teeth and go to bed when I heard a metallic clanging in the kitchen. My sister had long since gone to bed, and the apartment had been quiet for at least an hour and a half, if not more. It was a familiar noise, one I'd heard all the time growing up when my mother would be in the kitchen, early in the morning, putting away the dishes from the previous night and getting ready to prepare breakfast. Metal meeting ceramic was the sound that busied the dark apartment. I was frozen, listening. It stopped after about 30 seconds, and I peeked into the kitchen first before brushing my teeth. I half expected to see the dishes put away or the cutlery splattered across the kitchen counter. But the clean dishes in our drying rack were the same as when we put them in there hours earlier. Nothing had been moved. This happened about twice a week, and whenever I went into the kitchen alone, I felt someone there. Their energy was undeniable. I sensed and knew where in the kitchen this spirit was standing, letting me get my water or make my coffee in peace. Whenever I would cook, that energy would disappear. And by cooking, I mean heating up some Chef Boyardee ravioli. And on select nights when the noises in the kitchen would start again, I wondered if a spirit was going through the motions of their own memories, cooking for their family or doing the dishes. It wouldn't be long until I would figure out how to open up with my abilities and talk to the spirit. But until then, these familiar and comforting sounds continued in the dark. About a week and a half later, I got an email from Kate saying she had waited to respond to me once she had read my application, and that she was excited to work with someone advanced if I still wanted to join her mentorship program. Advanced? I thought. I was advanced? At seeing ghosts? Sensing energies? This was the first external validation I'd ever received of someone who experienced the same things I did, and as often as I did. Someone else who understood exactly what I was, and had been going through my whole life, acknowledged that I could see spirits and sense energies. I know external validation isn't the be-all and end-all, and it's not encouraged to seek out all the time for everything, but it felt really good to be recognized in this way. I messaged back that I was interested, and we scheduled our first Zoom session for the next week. And so this is a great start to this, and Meghan, I agree with you, like, external validation, if you need it all the time, like, that's obviously bad, but it is nice. I was actually not going to mention this on the show because it's an insane thing to admit to, but when I was doing the script readings for the film festival a couple of weeks back, the guy sitting next to me, one of the readers, was a bodybuilder. And as we were sitting there next to me, he leaned over and said, "Dude, your arms are gigantic." I was like, what? And because again, to me, I don't know, I look the same as I ever have. He's like, yeah, man, they're huge. I tell you, you want to cure your body dysmorphia, at least for a couple hours, have a bodybuilder tell you that you look giant. So that was a nice day. But but yeah, obviously you can't depend on it all the time. That's how you end up a podcaster.
Yeah, bro.
That's right. Oh man. Actually, funny enough, the Meghan thing, Meghan, when you mentioned contacting Kate through Instagram, and just as like a Hail Mary, like, fuck it, let's just see what happens. That's how I started to fix my body after the pandemic. It was this dude on Instagram. I won't say his name anymore. Or pardon me, I won't say his name, but he used to run an account that used to be called some variation of like physiotherapy for desk-bound people or something like that. And of course, I was in terrible, like my feet were in terrible shape, my legs were in terrible shape, my back hurt, my neck hurt. And so I just, in desperation, he said he was taking new clients. I thought, fuck it, let's try. I filled out the form, sent it in, forgot about it. And then after a month, I got a message from him saying, hey, I just saw your message. I took a month off. If you're still interested, I'm still taking people. And working with that guy and like doing the very basic body rehab stuff, because I hadn't properly worked out in years at that point. So like doing just the rehab stuff just to get my everything moving the way it was supposed to, and to like unknot my muscles that had just gotten so tense during the pandemic, and like fixing, eventually like fixing my feet. All that started with a message, really, all of which ended to that in that moment next to the stage where the dude was like, holy shit, all of that started with just a desperately sending an Instagram in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of the night. So sometimes, which is not to say DM people, because that's a bad idea, Like we actually had a message. I don't know if I sent you this. Someone sent me a message. They replied to one of the stories we put up. He called me a cunt. And then he said, sorry. And he sent me a meeting request. What? No to all of this. What is happening right now? So yeah, don't DM everybody, but sometimes Hail Marys pay off is what I'm saying. I felt weird saying it because the English, you guys can get away with it. It more just sounds like I'm being a monster, but I thought I got to say the word because this is what I was called.
It's punctuation here, mate.
Exactly. Not here. It just sounds like I'm the kind of person who refers to my spouse as the old lady, which is not a welcome thing outside of 1982.
Well, you'd all best get used to that now. Scotland are coming for the World Cup, mate. North America stands on the precipice of a British invasion because England have qualified. Scotland have finally qualified. First World Cup this century. They haven't been in a World Cup since 98. And then Wales, Northern Ireland and Ireland are all in the playoffs. So technically they can all get through and qualify for the World Cup. So we could have the UK and Ireland all there, causing varieties of stress.
I was going to say, the British team won't get on any of the buses unless the Northern Irish team gets on first. I know folks here are getting very, very excited for it. I know actually Nick's boss, he won. I think to buy tickets, you had to put your name into like a lottery.
Yeah,
and and so he won. He bought tickets, and so he is very stoked. I don't know to which match, but
he doesn't. Nobody does because they haven't done the draw yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go.
That's next month.
Oh, okay. So he's got the opportunity to buy tickets, I guess.
Well, they sell them for the grounds, but you don't know what games you're going to get.
I see. Okay, so I don't know which grounds it is then. I just know he's got something. He's quite pleased with himself.
And obviously nobody knows because they put teams in certain places. So it's all about where are you going to put. Like Mexico will obviously hosting it, so they'll be down there. But some of the other Latin countries will probably be in Cali and Florida, like your Argentinas and your Brazils. And they'll probably stick us in Boston. That'll go down well.
I feel like putting the Irish team in Boston is punishing the Irish team, because you're going to have all these fake-ass Boston Irish trying to cuddle up to these guys, acting like they're the same. On with Meghan's story.
The night before my session, I climbed into bed as usual and prepared to go to sleep when the stillness of the evening was disrupted. It was a change in the air from stillness to presence that made me sit up. I could sense and see, in my mind's eye, multiple figures in the dark surrounding my bed. I closed my eyes and said, I'm going to bed now. I'm not talking to you. You have to leave. And with that, the energy was gone. I opened my eyes, and the visitors had gone, and my room had returned to normal. This gave me pause about my meeting. What was I getting myself into? But mostly hopeful that I'd find some answers the next day with Kate. My anxiety was raging the morning of the session. Minutes before I was due to log on to the Zoom meeting link, my self-doubt hit its peak. I was trying to calm myself down when a ringing in my left ear cut through the noise of my anxiousness, and I listened. It dissipated after a few seconds, and I was calm. This was for me, and I knew that this was a step in the right direction, that I was supposed to be doing this. I clicked into the Zoom link and cast my glance to my right side where my 2 decks of tarot cards and notebook lay. And then the session began. It was incredible. I felt so seen, and she answered all of my questions with a clarity I'd never had with the paranormal. When I told her I didn't think I was a psychic medium, she nodded and shrugged. She said, "Okay, let's try and connect you with your spirit guides. Let them in, and we'll see what comes up." I nodded, uncertain that I'd be able to fully communicate with my spirit guides or spirits in general. I closed my eyes. I was back at a door that had separated me from all those voices nearly a year prior. I opened the door, flipped the switch, and let my spirit guides in. What I first felt was a rush of love that I'd never felt before. It was pure, unconditional, everlasting love. That's the only way I can describe it. And then I started writing. Just automatic writing like I'd done once before by accident when I was in high school. I was bored in science class, and I wanted to make it look like I was paying attention and taking notes, so I started typing on my laptop without looking at the keyboard. After enough keyboard smashing, I stopped and looked at my screen, expected to see a word smash of letters and a long red line underscoring them. What I saw scared me. What I had typed read, "Please help me. I'm stuck in traffic and I need water." I pressed that backspace key like I was trying to break it until it was gone. I looked outside to the window that was directly to my right. It overlooked a prominent highway in Fairfax, Virginia. It was 2 p.m. in the afternoon, which was prime traffic time in the area. I was spooked, but I soon forgot about the incident. I'd rarely thought about it until the automatic writing session. I wrote down everything I heard. A man's voice came through first. I was shocked that a man had come through first, that a man would even be a spirit guide for me because I felt so deeply connected to women. But I wrote, and then a woman's voice stepped in, another spirit guide of mine. I'd never really given any thought to any spirit guides in my life before this. Sure, I'd felt drawn or led to certain directions before, especially the year prior to this session, where I was looking for other jobs. But I'd never reached out to speak to a spirit before. Everything had just happened to me instead of me actively seeking the spirits out. I was taking a step into their world, and I knew I'd never look back. After the writing, images flooded in, even after the session. I got to know 2 of my spirit guides. It was fascinating getting their names and seeing images of who they were in their lives, and what lessons they were here to help me with, to learn in mine. I pulled tarot cards for them so I could interpret physically what their personalities were like, and what they had come to say to me in this first encounter. A 3rd guide popped in, but my principal guide, John, who'd come through first, said it wasn't time for that yet. I got her name though, Carmela, and she was the spirit guide that showed me images after my session with Kate was over. The hour flew by, and I booked my next session. I was elated. I felt like I was on cloud 9, that I'd finally broken open and was able to see all the parts of myself clearly for the first time. I was giddy, and I felt energized. I was finally getting the answers to questions I'd had for years, whilst new questions arose to the surface over the week. The next week, we covered protection and how to close off connections properly when I was finished communicating with a spirit or sensing the energy of an object or building. We practiced pulling tarot cards and how intuitively connected with my cards and receiving the messages I was. 3 years before I started my mentorship with Kate, I'd felt pulled to start reading tarot. I wasn't sure about it and still had a lot of Catholic stigmas swirling in my brain surrounding tarot as a divination tool that I had to unpack and unlearn. 2 years later, after another 14-hour day at work, I stopped by a boutique right next to my apartment building and bought my first deck, which was an oracle deck that I felt drawn to. That night, I lit a candle and started pulling cards, writing down the meaning of the card from the booklet after I'd already written down what I'd perceived from the card intuitively. Sometimes they matched, and sometimes they were different. But I learned that the way they felt right and authentic for me was to use my mediumship and intuition to interpret the cards, not memorizing their meanings. After a few more sessions, Kate said it was time to start communicating and channeling without the tarot.
I'm kind of curious, Paul. Have you ever experimented with tarot or ever tried to channel? I know you did the Estes method when we were at the convention last couple of years back, but have you ever tried to do like a sort of do tarot yourself or channel?
Yes, I was trained by my grandmother to use playing cards.
No shit.
So I would do it occasionally until the incident with the car crash, and I basically tried to unlearn it all from that point on.
Interesting.
And I've never really done it since.
So now, if you're not comfortable talking about it, that's okay. But I'm kind of curious: was it that you felt like having the information upset you, or did you feel like you'd somehow caused it?
I felt responsible for that accident for several years. It took me a long time, Bren.
I believe it.
I would say it's probably only the last 5 years I've not blamed myself for that night. Even though I wasn't in the car and I didn't make them leave and I stopped other people going, more people would have died. I still didn't think I'd done enough. Yeah, it took me a while to get my head around it, and then it just kind of clicked for me. I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. And I was having a big chat with one of my mates, the man who met Spider-Man, and we were having a chat. We were having a chat because obviously we were at his house when it happened, and he said, "Yeah, you can't. It's not absolutely not your fault. Nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you in the slightest." And that kind of helped me. He just said it's one of those things. He said, you did what you did, and that was enough. But at the time, it terrified me. I mean, within 6 weeks, I'd left and moved to Sheffield, and my life was completely different. So, I mean, it was an instrumental incident in my life, but it also kind of played into that pushing away the paranormal for so long. It was all wrapped up inside of it.
That makes sense. I mean, it's the way things sort of wires cross in our brain, where we can start to associate things together, even though they don't necessarily belong together. I can see how that connection would be made. It's unfortunate, of course, and I'm glad you got your way out of it. But yeah, that's a hell of a thing.
So I am deeply attracted to relearning tarot. I have to say, it's something I keep meaning to dive into. Julie started with it.
Oh, cool.
But I think with my obsessive nature, and I joke about this, but I always know how my brain works, that if I buy one deck, then I know I'm going to have 100 within a year.
Right.
Because they are beautiful. There's some fantastic collection. I'd have all sorts of stuff. I can literally walk 10 minutes away and I've probably got about 100 different packs to choose from. So who knows? Is that a scab I want to pick at and let loose again? So yes, I used the old as a kitchen magic way, which was using a pack of normal playing cards as for fortune telling, as it were. Crystal balls as well.
Interesting. It's funny, you were talking about Adam, and I won't spoil any of this, but he and I were briefly chatting via text message, and he was telling me about a place called a necromantium, which is sort of like a series of mirrors used for scrying, essentially. Yes. And I think he's talking about it on his new show. So again, I won't spoil it. Go check out Houston Strange and Weekly Creep. But I've always, the idea of like divination has interested me, but I've never really gotten into it. I don't know why. A friend of mine's a very skilled tarot reader, but she was taught by her mother. But I have never bothered to try. The one time someone I know got to like using a pendulum, and I used it a couple times, but I had this very strong aversion to continuing to use it. And I don't know if that's just sort of like the old Catholicism just kind of rearing up out of my past, or what that is?
I suppose, I mean, I know people who've known me long enough point to the incident with my friend's mum, whose life I saved in the car. And they've said, you chose to go to the supermarket then. You might not have realised it, but you were meant to be there. And I have thought about that quite a lot sometimes, because it was just completely random that I went and bumped into him. And if I hadn't been that day there that day and bumped into them, she'd have died. It's as simple as that. There's no ifs, no buts, no maybes. Because her daughter just fell apart. She couldn't deal with it. Which is one of those things that often happens in situations like that. It's very odd when you're a trained first aider. You just seem to find an envelope of calm around you, and you can just get on with doing what you do while people are screaming around you or coming outside with cups of teas and blankets and stuff. That's one thing. One of those things I've often thought. As Jim Harold says, sometimes there's such a thing as coincidence when it's too much of a coincidence. Why was I there? Why did I suddenly decide at that particular moment to do what I did, to be in that place at the exact same time as them? I just went for it and went and changed people's lives. So I don't know, mate.
Returning to Meghan's story, Meghan says, I honestly didn't have the confidence in myself to channel without the cards. I still held a deep imposter syndrome within me when it came to my abilities. Kate could sense I was nervous, so she asked me if anything was happening lately that I wanted to look into. My first thoughts were the memory of the scratching noises in my wall and the rattling in the kitchen during the late nights. I brought those up and Kate made a face. She tilted her head to the side and said, Yeah, the thing in the wall, it's not nice. When you hear it again, you need to tell it to go away and never come back. My heart dropped. So far in this journey, rediscovering my abilities with Kate, it had been safe. It had been practice. This was a stark reminder that not everything to do with the paranormal, a world that I had now fully embraced, was friendly, or had good intentions. Just like with a living, I suppose, but when you add the extra layer of spirits being able to hide themselves, it sends a chill up my spine. I nodded and Kate continued. This is something that's in the building. It sensed how emotionally vulnerable you were and gravitated to you. That's why you need to get rid of this thing. Honestly, it kind of looks like a hand. She laughed. She said she had no other way to describe it. The image that immediately popped into my head was an overgrown skeletal hand that slinked in the walls of my apartment building. Well, that is a striking image. I took a deep breath. This thing had sensed that I was vulnerable, that I was hurting. I clenched my teeth. What I was feeling was not weakness, and I wouldn't want something to think it could toy with me because of my emotional state. And Kate had said when this thing comes back. When it did, I would be ready to send it out of my space for good. Kate moved on to the noises in my kitchen. You're going to do this yourself, okay? No cards and no help from me. I know it's in there, but I want you to have that validation for yourself. I was sweating. I was so nervous. I was still expecting her to say, What are you doing? You're not a medium. You can't do this. But I closed my eyes and tuned into my apartment. I had never fully and intentionally connected with a property before. It had always been accidental or consequential. But this time was the first time I was in charge. I had autonomy and the power to close the connection if I needed to. After making the connection, I breathed in normally, and my chest creaked just like my wooden floors. I smiled. I knew I'd made the connection. I sensed two spirits. One was in the far corner of the dining area, somewhere I'd always sensed someone staring at me while I walked around the house, and especially at night when the spirit made me walk that much faster to my bedroom. The other spirit was in the kitchen. I knew immediately that both spirits were women. I said this to Kate, and she smiled and nodded. Keep going. Which one do you want to talk to first? The spirit in the dining room. I smiled as I began to speak to her in my mind. She didn't materialize completely. I couldn't see her clearly. She was almost an apparition of a young girl in a white dress. Her energy was kind and bright, and she was just happy to be there. I introduced myself and asked her what she was doing. Is there anything she wanted to say? She didn't speak to me through a voice, but instead through my intuition and images. She showed me plants in my sister's bedroom, and I felt happy towards them. I told Kate she came here because she loved the plants. My sister used to have a mini greenhouse in her bedroom. Kate smiled and nodded. That's what I got too, she said. After this young girl, whose age I sensed was 16, went quiet. I said to Kate, I'm not hearing anything else from her. My mentor paused for a moment and said, Meghan, I believe she's ready to be crossed over. Have you ever done that before? I definitely had not. I told her as much. She said she would guide me through it. I closed my eyes again and spoke to the girl. If you want to leave, to go be with your family, your friends, your mother, you can go through this door, okay? I visualized a door carved out of glowing white light for her to walk through. She walked through that door of light. The energy in the dining area and around me changed. It settled. I opened my eyes. I didn't feel her energy anymore. I said to Kate, I think she's gone. I think she crossed over. Kate nodded. Me too. This marked a huge change for me. I had never really done something so meaningful in this line of work before. This is when it really struck me that I was doing this and I could be making a difference in people's lives, whether it be for the living or the passed on. A calm descended on me, and I proceeded to connect with a woman in the kitchen. I tuned into the woman's energy, and I saw a white outline of a figure. Usually by now, I would get an image or a sense of something about the woman and her life. All I was met with was silence. As I tried harder to connect with her, Kate said, Meghan, why don't you try introducing yourself to her? I spoke to the woman and introduced myself. I asked her what her name was. Sophia, she said. But there was an emotion attached to her voice that I hadn't come across yet during my experience with the paranormal. There was hesitancy. Then she completely disappeared. She was just a shadow in the kitchen now. Kate, I said, I'm not getting anything from her, just her name, Sophia. Kate listened, then laughed. She probably saw that you crossed over the other girl and doesn't want you to do the same to her. Just talk to her. Tell her about yourself and your sister, where you come from, how you came to live in this apartment, etc. I closed my eyes again and started to do just that, but I got nowhere. Only a few scarce images of the 1950s and 1960s flitted in my mind's eye. I started to get really frustrated with myself and was worried about looking bad in front of my mentor. Kate could see my frustration and asked, Meghan, do you speak any Spanish? I shrugged. My mom and her family are Mexican, but I didn't grow up with a lot of Spanish. I can get by a little bit. All right, she said. Try speaking some Spanish to her. Sometimes the spirits who don't speak English or English as a first language, they're a bit harder to communicate with, or they communicate through images and feelings more. I went back to Sophia for the third time and introduced myself, this time in Spanish, and told her about my ancestry and that my sister and I were the new tenants living in this apartment. After I explained everything, the shadow figure morphed into the colorful image of an elderly Latina woman wearing a red skirt, a white blouse, and a black laced veil I recognized from the Latina church ladies of my childhood. This was Sophia. I smiled. I see her so clearly now, I exclaimed. Perfect. You can start asking her more questions. I asked Sophia why she was making noises in the kitchen. I said I wasn't mad, I just wanted to understand. Sophia gave me the feeling that she liked being in the kitchen, that this room was hers, and that the kingdom she reigned over in her lifetime. She provided for her family in this way. This was her greatest show of love. I then remarked, sometimes I feel you when I'm cooking. What do you think of my cooking skills? I meant this as a joke. At that time, all the cooking I did was heat up some Chef Boyardee. The second I asked her that, Sophia made a funny face, my first time receiving shade from a spirit. Kate laughed and said, why did I just hear her laugh? I told Kate about my cooking, or lack thereof, and we shared a nice moment, the three of us. One little thing about this, Paul, because Meghan sent us this in a very, very long PDF file. And so I converted it into Word, or into I copied and pasted it, I think, into the Google Doc. But it's not, the formatting is not one-to-one. And so when I got to this part about Sophia, for some reason, I guess because the I had an accent over it, it pasted it, and the best it could find was Soxa. And so when I was prepping the script, I was like, Soxa? What kind of I don't think that's a Spanish name. I've never heard, and like the rest of Meghan's story is so good. And I'm like, this is a bullshit name. This is not a real name. And I was Googling, where is this name? And like, it's a name in Eastern Europe and maybe parts of Spain, but in one place it was sopa, which is soup in Spanish. I'm like, there's no way this fucking lady's name was soup. The tale of my spiritual awakening with the ghost soup. So I was starting to get worried, and then I went back to the original doc and saw, no, you boob, it's Sophia. It's just that Google decided to screw with you when you copied and pasted it.
We never know what people are called these days.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
More countries need to be like the Netherlands and have a list of names. And if you want to call your child anything, it has to be on the list.
Oh, right. I think I remember you telling me about that. It's a very bold way of going about it.
Yeah, I'm sure the Dutch aren't the only people who do that.
I have to imagine the Icelandics do, because everyone is, Einar Gunnarsson or Gunnar Einarsson.
Yeah, well, you take your father's name, don't you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I haven't seen like a Skylarson, Skylar Mackenzie daughter. Like I haven't seen that.
Well, you never know. I mean, there used to be a guy play for Uruguay in the 1980s who was called John Brown, and he couldn't speak a word of English.
Now that's a pretty badass name to have.
It is in Uruguay.
Well, he was also the famous abolitionist in the U.S., John Brown.
Yes.
So it'd be a great name to have in parts of America.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not sure, because there's a lot of connections in South America with Brits, and a lot of miners went over there. So I'm not sure if there is, because there's a really weird German town somewhere is it Brazil, where it's basically like visiting the Alps, but you're in the rainforest.
Can't imagine why.
No, I can't either.
Wink.
I further learned that Sophia, after asking about her life and why she was in this apartment, had emigrated from Cuba to the US in the 1950s and had made her home here in my apartment. It was interesting the different ways certain information was coming through. At that time, I was trying to just let it all flow to me. Sophia sometimes spoke to me in her voice, with images and with feelings, and sometimes all three together in order to form the complete picture. When I asked Sophia about why she'd chosen this apartment to stay into for her afterlife, I felt my gut, my intuition, split in two ways. The first was that because she had lived in this apartment, but the second was that I felt she'd also lived somewhere else. When I tuned in more, that's when it clicked, and she showed me in feelings and images that she came from Cuba and lived in my apartment with her family. It felt surreal and special to have this kind of experience with a house spirit. Sophia had lived her life in this same space that I am now living mine, her past and my present colliding, separated by only the thinnest of veils. She was warm and motherly, and Kate told me to get to know her more, talk to her more on my own, and find out what kind of music she likes. She loves the music you play when you're in the kitchen. Me and my sister still get a kick out of this to this day. Most of the music we play in the kitchen is reggaeton, which in the case of our playlist, mostly contains songs with raunchy lyrics. We laughed and apologised to Sophia if we'd shocked her all this time. Towards the end of my conversation with Sophia, I asked her if she would help protect our apartment, help me keep the activity at bay, and protect against anything dark or with our questionable or ill intentions. She agreed. I voiced to Kate what I had talked to about with Sophia. Right when I said, I asked her to help protect my home, Sophia's voice came through on my laptop's mic. Unfortunately, I didn't hear this in real time because, of course, at that exact moment, a huge truck outside was living its best life and laying on the horn. I didn't hear Sophia or what Kate said, so I literally was just staring into the camera with a smile on my face until the truck stopped. But afterwards, Kate sent me the recording of our meeting, and I jumped when I heard Sophia's voice. That was exactly how she had sounded when we had spoken. That was her voice. In response to what I was saying about asking her to help to protect our home, she said, I was in awe and grateful for this little confirmation that I was actually doing this and that I could do this. Thanks to Sophia, I gained some confidence in my abilities and captured my first EVP. 2 weeks later, I remembered what Kate had said about asking Sophia what kind of music she liked and playing it for her when I cooked. That night I was cooking something that actually required some type of assembly, so I called to Sophia. I smiled when the energy shifted. I sensed her right at the opening of the kitchen where my pantry stood. I asked her what kind of music was her favourite and what she wanted to hear, and she told me a name, Carlos Guzman. I'd never heard of him, so I googled it. I scrolled down the first page without seeing anything, but finally at the very bottom was an article about a Grammy winner from the 1960s. My intuition sang. This was him. So I asked her, "Okay, what song?" And I didn't get a response. "What album?" I asked next, and I sensed an album from the late 60s. 1967, I think it was. I scrolled down Carlos Guzman's list and landed on the two that felt right. I asked Sophia which one, and she told me to pick the second one. I can't remember what it was titled, but when I scrolled through the song list, she kept pulling me further down until she got across what she wanted to hear, and that was the last track. I laughed out loud at the title. The song she wanted to hear was called Nuestro Apartamento, Our Apartment. To this day, I play it whenever I'm in the kitchen thinking about her. She crossed over on her own, but whenever I miss her or need her help, I know that she comes back and will come back. All I need to do is play our song. As the weeks went by, my sessions with Kate flourished. I was learning so much about myself, my abilities, and settling into my new life of engaging in the paranormal with boundaries and autonomy. On a cold December evening, my depression had returned. I'd done everything I could to try and uplift myself. I was burning a large peppermint candle that cast a warm glow against my pale walls. I'd taken the compost down, and I'd done some grocery shopping. I thought some basic self-care would help. But I just found myself feeling the same, but colder. I was sitting in my bed watching a movie when I heard it. The familiar, slow, scraping noise coming from the far side of my room. I paused the movie and listened. It dragged itself closer and closer, taking the same route as it had the last time. My heart thundered as it inched its way to me, and it stopped right next to me. I knew I was looking right at it, and Kate's words echoed in my mind. It came to you because it knew you were vulnerable, and it was back again because I was in the same mental and emotional state as the first time it visited me. Anger rose in my arms and flooded my cheeks with heat. I mustered all the resolution and confidence my anger had given me and spoke to it. You need to leave. You are not welcome here. You will be never able to come back to this building. You will never again be near myself or my sister or any of our friends and family members. Get out. Seconds after I said this, I heard the front door to my building slam violently. The energy returned to normalcy. The thing was gone, and it had left via the front door. Or more likely, I kicked it out the front door. I listened for any noise of our neighbours coming up the stairs, but I didn't hear anything of the sort. And I hadn't heard anyone at the front door, which is right below my bedroom window, before I'd spoken to the entity. I breathed slowly to calm myself. I had successfully told off that thing that tried to be near me, and do who knows what, because I was in a vulnerable place. It was gone, and it's never returned.
I wasn't able to find the Carlos Guzman song, Our Apartment, but I did listen to some of his other stuff on YouTube. And I don't know, did you have a chance?
No.
I'm a fan. And also I think it's really cool that that Sophia was able to cross over on her own. Like, I think that's it shows the kind of person she was. She was so like self-possessed and self-aware that once she was kind of acknowledged and the time came, she was just able to go, no, I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
I mean, conversely, there was in Revelstoke, in Strange, the Main Street Cafe, they had a spirit there that liked to cook for people, but she was much more territorial, and they actually had to force her to move on because she was harassing. She hated men specifically, and she was harassing the male employees in addition to just being a general pain in the ass. There was this one poor motherfucker there. She was just hunting him like he was Jean-Claude Van Damme and she was Arnold Vosloo. There's a deep pull for our younger fans. Actually, when I was volunteering at the film festival, I was talking to one of the kids I was working with. Very, very nice young lady. But we were talking about, she likes action movies. And I said something about John Woo, and she goes, who? And I was over the moon because I said, oh, man, I am so excited for you. You get to see these things for the first time. I would kill for the opportunity to see these things for the first time. So I was telling her about, and of course, the 4K editions of a lot of his catalog have just been issued. So for the first time, you can see Hard Boiled, The Killer, The Better Tomorrow 1 and 2. Better Tomorrow is a better one of those, but Bullet to the Head in like the way they were meant to be seen. And so, but I mentioned Hard Target, which I thought, at least that one you must know, right? Blank look. I said, Jean-Claude Van Damme, blank look. Fuck, I'm old now.
Should have said No Retreat, No Surrender. First time I saw JCVD on that.
No Retreat, No Surrender. I actually don't know that one at all.
It's one of those films that appears in the mid to early 80s. I think the guy in it wasn't actually like a fighter. He was an ice skater or something stupid. But they were going to make him into a big superstar. And Jean-Claude Van Damme plays the baddie in it. I think he plays a Russian. And obviously the hero has to fight him in it. But it's so cheesily shit. But I think that was one of those I saw in the mid-80s at a mate's house. I think that was his big break, Van Damme.
Okay, so I see it. I had never heard of it. But it was 1986. That was directed by Corey Yuen, who is a famed Hong Kong director who made films like Yes, Madam, which basically introduced the world to Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock, actually.
Wow.
And I think he also, if I'm not mistaken, he also made the Cynthia Rothrock film. Folks, we just had the most terrible noise come up on my side. Someone is drilling in this building somewhere, and it is very loud in my apartment. So we're going to try and record around it as best we can. But
Podcast Jeopardy.
You're not kidding.
I hope he's drilling a wall and not a body.
Yeah, I mean, this building, maybe. I've heard there's a guy in the basement who's breeding dogs. So, anything is possible.
You found yourself on the set of Driller Killer 3.
And just before we move on, Corey Yuen, he also directed Cynthia Rothrock in Righting Wrongs in 1986. And I only just watched that because Vinegar Syndrome restored it. But talk about a fucking bleak-ass movie. It is completely the opposite. Because, Yes, Madam with Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh is very, great stunts, Michelle Yeoh kicking ass. But then Righting Wrong, and of course, it's no spoiler to say the good guy wins in the end. Righting Wrongs is one of the most bleak Hong Kong action films from that era I have ever seen. It is basically a giant middle. The ending could not have been any more of a fuck you if Corey Yuen had personally delivered me a handwritten letter. And then, of course, his final film, I believe, before he died, was the film adaptation of the video game DOA. Which, have you ever seen it?
Is that the one with Dennis Quaid?
No, DOA is, he might be in a movie called DOA. This is it's an adaptation of the fighting game. It's got Matthew Marsden, Eric Roberts, and then a sort of a who's who of the popular female actresses at the time. It's got Jamie Presley, Devon Aoki, Holly Valance, Natasha Malt. It's nuts. It's a terrible, terrible movie, but it's also, the fight scenes are kind of great, and the actresses, I should say, they trained quite hard for the martial arts in the film, so the fight scenes are better than you expect from an American film of that type, but it's not good. It is, however, folks, streaming on Tubi, so you should absolutely watch it. You will not regret it.
Matthew Marsden, ironically, who also plays the sniper in Rambo 4.
I thought I recognized that name. He plays Schoolboy.
Yep.
And Eric Roberts, who appears drunk in pretty much everything. Yep.
Everything he's made since 1988.
Apparently, he did that terrible vanity project, Blackbird, for Michael Flatley. And I guess he is smashed the whole thing. He may as well just be drooling the entire time. They practically had to Weekend at Bernie's the guy, from what I understand.
It's like, what you call him? Oh, legendary actor who's in Kill Bill 2.
Oh, David Carradine.
No, not David Carradine. The guy Uma Thurman goes to meet in the bar who tells her where Bill is.
Michael Madsen?
No. Legendary Spanish.
Michael Parks.
Yeah. And if he's not shit-faced in that scene, then by heck, he's a bloody good actor. He looks absolutely fucked in that scene. He can barely keep his head up.
The intensity, he's drunk on the spirit of acting. I mean, the time my friends and I met Michael Madsen, he was also drunk on the spirit of acting and probably a few other things.
Yes, he did like to keep himself very refreshed.
Oh, man, that was... I'm sure I've told this story before, but we wandered into a bar somewhere in Langley on the Lower Mainland because it was my friend's wedding the next day. And it was a completely empty bar. It had great prices. We thought it was, and there was cabling running everywhere. So we thought it was like a film set or something. But it turned out that that there was a film production that had kind of set up their circus nearby. So we literally were there for, I don't know, 12 hours until they closed the bar, basically. But at one point, Michael Madsen, who was shooting Christmas Crash nearby, came in with his shall we say entourage and his son. And the waitress who had come off shift and was sitting with us, she was like, I don't know who the fuck Michael Madsen is. And she said, he's old and gross, whoever he is. And he was not looking his best, shall we say. He would later end up in the hospital for exhaustion about 3 months later. I am not surprised. He tried to sell his leather jacket to my friend for $100, but
don't give Larry Warren ideas. Christ.
But then my friend, she said to the waitress, he was in Free Willy. And immediately her whole face changed. She goes, oh my God, he was the dad in Free Willy. His son's kind of hot. And that was all it took. She still wasn't going to fuck Michael Madsen. There's some lines, you can't cross. But his son, who, let's say, the apple had fallen quite far from the tree. A charmer he was not. Yeah, exactly. She had decided that it was his lucky night. I was so drunk I don't remember how that night ended, other than we all walked through the drive-through like a bunch of raccoons.
Imagine if you'd woke up next to Michael Madsen.
I've got a pocket full of McDonald's cookies. Oh, it was a bad night, man. It was. Ooh, yeah. Anyways, I didn't contribute to Michael Madsen's decline, I think, but we sure didn't know
that.
Yeah.
First right. Michael Madsen, then it was Gary Busey. Yeah, we know.
Well, I can't roll that hard.
I know I can't anymore.
All right, I can't remember how we got from poor Meghan's story here, but I'll get back to Meghan's story. In my next session with Kate, I told her of my latest triumph. Then she asked me if there was anything on my mind. I was thinking a lot about my experience with the paranormal lately. I told Kate about my parents' apartment, and that I knew it was haunted when I lived there. I was going back there to visit my friends and parents, so I wanted to dive into the place together to see what exactly was there, especially with my latest experience I'd had there with those hands touching the back of my neck. I wanted to be better protected and equipped with the knowledge of who or what was going to be there. As we began, my smile fell as she told me that she saw something dark in my old bedroom. I hadn't told her about the dark energy I had sensed there. I just said that I had experiences in my room and I knew that my old home was haunted. That sounds about right, I answered. What do you see there? Ask your spirit guides to show you. Kate had said this so I wouldn't have to tune into the dark energy myself. Asking my spirit guides to show me the dark energy would keep me better protected from it as I peered into the situation. An image of my bedroom flashed to my mind as I asked my guides to show me the energy. I saw a dark mass pooling in and around itself, a latent storm cloud, in the corner of my room next to my closet. Kate nodded as I iterated this and said that's exactly what she was seeing. This entity, it's not good, but it's not evil. It's opening a portal for things to come through, though. There's a lot of spirits coming and going. Let's try to close it remotely. My anxiety skyrocketed. This was out of the norm for me. I believed portals existed, but the only times I ever heard about them were in stories of dark things or stories of people just leaving them as is and escaping the property. I grimaced. I was afraid. I was afraid of closing the portal because in order to do that, I had to fully face it. Not just ask my guides to show me the portal from a safe distance. I had to face it head on. I explained my fears to Kate, and she helped me build up my protection before we went into it. I called on my spirit guides, ancestors, and angels of 100% divine light, love, and sound for protection as I went into this. Side note, when calling in these spirits for protection, I always say of 100% divine light, love, and sound because this allows only spirits with all-encompassing good, pure, and clear intentions into my space. I had learned this from another psychic medium who taught me with guided meditations to help my anxiety. Guided by Kate, I closed my eyes and pictured my room. Armed with my protection, I faced the dark mass and the figure hiding behind it. I lifted my hand physically, and in my mind's eye, it prickled with heat and tingles, the middle of my palm hot and buzzing with energy. I moved my hand circular in a counterclockwise motion to close the portal and recede the energy. I'd never done energy work before, and I really didn't know this was something I was capable of until this moment. When it felt good, I closed the connection. Good job, Kate said. I feel like you'll have to finish closing it in person, though. So when you go back there, do exactly what you did just now, and you'll be fine. And I just want to pause here real quick, Paul. That feeling of prickling heat was exactly what I felt driving past that house in Victoria that had the really dark energy about it. I've never heard anyone else describe a feeling of prickling heat in regard to spirit before, but that's exactly what I experienced. All around the collar of my neck, like all around my collar.
Yeah. Yeah, heat is not something that's normally associated, is it? But, I mean, there have been a few poltergeist cases where people have felt heat or burns or whatever. But,
Interesting.
When you get that prickly heat, that's kind of the opposite. It's usually like it makes your blood run cold or your hairs stand on end. You don't start feeling hot and sweaty and prickly.
Yeah, I never experienced anything like that before, and until just now, I was not aware anyone else had either. So that's telling, because of that, if anywhere there was a portal, that house is a portal. All right, so Meghan goes on to say, dread filled me. The last thing I wanted to do was face this thing in person. Part of me was still afraid. I'd heard paranormal stories of people chasing bad things out, but those bad things knew those people had been coming to kick them out, and then all the shit hit the fan. But I would do it. I had to, and I wanted this energy gone. I did not want a portal in my room where anything could waltz through and stay if it wanted. That was out of the question. The day came when it was time to leave for Moynihan Hall and hop onto the Amtrak to D.C. Before I left, I made sure I'd packed my Palo Santo, a lighter, and my clear quartz and black tourmaline crystals, the tourmaline for protection and the clear quartz to amplify that protection. On the train ride to D.C., all I could think about was closing the portal. And in the car with my dad on the way to the apartment, my nerves escalated. I closed my eyes, grounded myself, and called in all my protection. Once inside the apartment, I put my bags down and put my crystals into my jean pockets. I took a deep breath. There was a heaviness on my shoulders, a comforting heaviness. I could feel all my guides and angels and ancestors behind me. I opened the door to my bedroom. As I closed the door behind me, my teenage bedroom had never felt more electric, more alive and present. I couldn't see the dark mass or the entity within it with my naked eye, but every fiber of my being felt its presence. The room was pulsing with energy. I never felt anything like it before. Compared to how it felt at this moment, all those times I'd felt this being's energy before had been a whisper. Now, it was a roar. It was all out in the open. No more hiding. No more waiting. With my mind's eye, I saw all my protection behind me. My hands were on fire with energy. I raised my right hand and started the counterclockwise motion, repeating, "You are not welcome here. You will leave. You will never come back. Nothing evil lingers here. You will never return." Once I felt the time was right, I pushed my hand forward with as much energy as I could and breathed. I took in my surroundings again. All of my nerves had left me shaking. I lit the Palo Santo and started to cleanse my room, repeating prayers. I started to cleanse where the corner the portal had been in, and then went all around my room, into my bathroom, and back into my closet, all the while repeating prayers. The energy of my bedroom was completely changed. I felt freer inside of it. I felt comfortable enough to change my clothes and take my time in the shower now. It felt brighter and warmer and happier. My dad knocked on my door and asked if everything was okay, and I said that I would be right out. For the first time inside that bedroom, I slept soundly and deeply and without being jolted awake. Since then, I've always slept peacefully in that room. The rest of the apartment was still now too. In the living room, kitchen, and my mother's closet, all the regular hotspots were silent. The apartment was empty of ghosts. I think when I erased the portal entity, I sent the rest of the spirits away with it. My first session back in New York, I explained everything to Kate, from how the room felt, how I could feel my spirit team and my protection behind me, and how I erased the portal and that entity from my room. Kate nodded. "Wow, yes, erased is a great word for it. Nice job." I beamed. I had proven to myself I could deal with the nasty things with confidence and protection. I then told Kate about my experience before I had closed the portal in my room, where I received the image of hands coming towards me, and then feeling them grab the back of my neck. But when I calmed down, my intuition was telling me that the hands felt good, like they had been there to protect me somehow. Kate considered this and nodded. Let's go ahead and dive into that. And we're going to dive into another ad break here. I forgot to introduce the one before it, but you guys heard the tunes. You knew what was up. We'll be right back. All right, so Paul, with this one, I was thinking about this, and it reminded me a little bit. I can't remember if I'm sure I've told you the story. I think we've been doing this 5 years now. You've heard all my stories, but my old office, the haunted one where I started Ghost Story Guys. I would go work there at night sometimes, because I had the keys, I had the alarm code, so I would, it was easier for me I had all my audio equipment there, so I would just go there and record the radio show I was doing at the time, or at a Ghost Story Guys, or whatever I was doing, right? So, but one night, I wanted to go, and I couldn't get myself out the door. I could not make myself go. And finally, I forced myself over to the door and put on my shoes and put on my coat and was about to walk out to the car when I got a text from my friend of mine who is very psychically sensitive. And she said, "Hey, you're not thinking of going to the office, are you?" I said, "Funny you mention. That's exactly where I'm headed." And she said, "Yeah, don't do that." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "I don't know. All I know is I have a feeling like we shouldn't go there or go in there." So I said, "Well, do you want to go drive by and just look and check it out?" So we did. I picked her up. We went this was like 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. So we cruised past it. And now my old office was on down on a sort of an offshoot of a one-way street. So it's kind of like a T-junction. Yep. So it was on the corner where it was. There's a big parkade. And then next to that is this sort of low slung building where my office was on the third floor. We drove down the one-way street. So didn't even get onto the side street. It was like what Meghan has described there, like a kind of a mass turning in on itself, but it was as tall as the building, taller, was like how it felt. It felt like it's kind of a mind's eye thing, but it was like above the building, turning like a tornado, like a black tornado. And we decided we're not going to drive down the street and be in front of it. That would be a mistake. So we just kept going down the main road. But as I passed it, now in stark contrast to the prickles, I felt what I can only describe as like a cold blowtorch all down the side of me that was in the direction of that cyclone. It was like someone was like focusing direct cold all down one side of my body. And just probably one of the most intense feelings I'd had in a long time. And what actually ended up happening is one of our listeners, I don't think she listens to the show anymore, Alexa, if you do, hello. But at the time, she came to the office. She was from Seattle, but every now and again, her and her husband would come up to Victoria, so we would get together for coffee. She borrowed some of my books at the time, which were all at the office. And when she came in, she goes, "Oh, this place is like, there's something going on here." And we did a whole thing. And she said, like, whatever's happening here, she said, there is a resident spirit that you keep trying to smudge away that is actually protecting you. Because she said, there's like a throughway here. And she said, things are coming through which are terrible, genuinely terrible. And this thing is acting as best as it can as a buffer between you and them. So one, stop trying to smudge it away. And two, we have to figure out. So she actually walked me, I think it was her, she walked me through the process of like talking to the thing in the building that had been protecting me this whole time. And I think it was actually as soon as I basically engaged with it, and we kind of came to this understanding, we lost the office. It was almost like, because by that time the company that I was part of had taken over the lease from my old company, from my former employers, and the business collapsed, so we had to let the lease go. So basically, as soon as I made that connection, and kind of instead of treating everything with fear, it was like all of a sudden now I'm connecting with it. I'm understanding it. And so maybe because the lesson was learned, I don't know. But we lost the lease on the building. We moved out 2 months later. It's just a huge, but it's almost like that initiated this huge period of transition, which at the time seemed quite frightening, because I'd worked in that office for 6-7 years. And, it was where we recorded the show. It was kind of like, it was my second home essentially. And all of a sudden it was gone, and it was almost like, okay, you've let go of this protective thing. But it took kind of going further in before you can come back out,
Yeah, definitely. Maybe the tornado was a symbol of the impending chaos about to envelop you.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know how quickly they're all like linked together, but, or like how closely they were linked together, but it was definitely a weird time. My activity with and kind of interacting with that world has changed so much since then. Like it doesn't happen very much anymore. But when I was in that building, it was constant. And funny enough, in terms of, just before we get back to the story, I think it was shortly before all that happened, I had a dream where I was meeting a man named Shelby Foote. I had to wait in Los Angeles in Pershing Square in this dream, and then someone found me, and I had a plastic parasol, like a see-through plastic umbrella, and I was going to go see this person. Said, okay, you want to see Shelby? Well, you have to leave this stuff behind. And so they took the umbrella, and I think I had a backpack that said, you can't bring this stuff with you. You have to go in just on your own. And so I followed this person through a maze of corridors until I got to this wall. They opened the wall and said, okay, Shelby's inside. And I went inside, and there was this man sitting there, and he was sitting there with a woman, and he spoke to me, and I don't remember what he said, but he said something, as I recall, it was pretty profound. And the impression I got was that people came to him for wisdom, and he would give it to them. But again, you had to give something up to get it. And then after getting whatever it was I got, I was sent on my way. Well, it turns out there's a real guy named Shelby Foote. He was a Civil War historian.
Yeah, he's a very famous one. I know who Shelby Foote is.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him. But not only was he a famous war historian, when I saw him, I looked up old photos of him. I saw him as a young man.
Whoa.
Yeah, because all the photos I found like when you quickly Google him, they're all of him as an elderly man. I looked up older photos of him. And if I'm not mistaken, what I saw was him in middle age.
How strange.
It was a really bizarre time. And yeah, and I was like, I didn't realize at the time I was in a really bad way. Like kind of doing all this shit in Ontario has been a way for me to sort of come to terms with the way my life changed in sort of 2018 and 2019, and a lot of which was not very good. And I realized like I was in a bad way, but I just didn't feel it. And it was weird. It was like there was this massive change coming, and I was having to let go of a lot of shit, but I wasn't necessarily aware it was happening.
Yeah, that's very strange that it would be him imparting wisdom that you didn't know who he was.
No idea who this man was.
Yeah, I discovered him doing my history A level.
Oh, well, I guess that makes sense.
He was held up as one of the key experts of American Civil War history.
No kidding.
Shelby Foote. Yeah, he was an authority. I think he's been dead about 20 years, which is even stranger.
Yeah, he died according to IMDb in 2005.
Yes, a very revered and attuned historian certainly was. I think he's one of those weird people. He kind of fell into journalism, and then decided he didn't want to be a journalist. He wanted to be a writer. And I think one of his books took 20 years to complete.
Holy shit.
But he started writing in the 50s after the war. So, he was like at the top tier of American historians for the best part of 50 years.
Yeah. So, and again, I had no idea whatsoever. I mean, maybe subconsciously I knew, but certainly it was not part of my conscious awareness. I had to Google, like the time I woke up listening to Salisbury Hill, but I didn't know what the song Salisbury Hill was. I woke up with the lyrics, "My heart goes boom, boom, boom." I Googled it and discovered that I'd been dreaming about Salisbury Hill.
Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
first solo single, I believe.
It's a hell of a single.
Yeah, he's always dropped bangers over the years as old Pete.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even was it the really weird one he did in the early 2000s? Up, I think it was.
Yep.
No. Was it Up? It's got I Grieve, The Barry Williams Show, Growing Up. But anyways, really great album. And just, I don't know, for a guy who's been making music as long as he had, you wouldn't expect him to still be making rock solid bangers in sort of his late solo career, but he was churning out some great shit.
Yeah. I always remember one of the funny stories about Peter Gabriel is that by 1986, his record company were getting a bit annoyed with him because he hadn't had a massive hit. And the problem was that one of their A&R men said, well, we think the problem we've got is that Peter Gabriel just calls his albums Peter Gabriel. So nobody knows if they go in a shop and ask for the Peter Gabriel album, is it the new album? And that's why So, which is his biggest selling album, is called So. Because they said, so what do you want to call the album? And he went, So. And that's why it changed. And then after that, he didn't call them Peter Gabriel anymore. But I think his first three albums are all called Peter Gabriel. So they're all known as 1, 2, and 3 now. And then
his first four, actually.
First four, yeah. And then So, which is incredible when you think about it. So is his fifth album that sees him become a worldwide star again after leaving Genesis. Because that's the one with Sledgehammer on it, Don't Give Up, Red Rain, what's the other singles? 4 massive singles off it. But obviously everybody knows Sledgehammer because of the video.
Of course.
And that was the first non-Peter Gabriel album, as it were.
Sledgehammer, In Your Eyes, Don't Give Up, Big Time, and Red Rain.
Big time, right, tune.
And I was right. It was Up, actually, that had the songs I was thinking of, his 2002 album. And folks, yeah, check that shit out. Barry Williams Show, More Than This, Growing Up. It is an incredible album. The song I Grieve, again, is just stellar.
I think did he not help create the War Mad Festival? He's certainly been a major driving force of it over the last 30 years.
Could very well be. I don't actually know much about him.
He's a top man. Very funny. Very intelligent. If you ever get a chance, there's a brilliant Genesis documentary that's about 3 hours long. And he pops up in it. And then he's obviously always got on with the band. I mean, he didn't fall out with the band. He just wanted to do different stuff.
Oh, okay.
But he's one of those, like, people forget Steve Illage was in Genesis as well. And then he just disappeared and made, like, ambient noise things for ages. Chill out music for hippies, told Steve. And then he discovered rave culture and started making rave records. So, yeah, they all still get on. But obviously, yeah, Pete was lead singer till what? Was it 75? Something like that? So you think it took him 11 years from leaving Genesis, who were just about to become massive. And then he had his solo career and he had a few like Games Without Frontiers and Salisbury Hill. But he wasn't a consistently high charter until So.
His first album came out in 77. And then, 77, 78, 80, 82, and then So in 86. All right. Well, from Peter Gabriel, we go back to Meghan's story.
I tuned into those hands that I remembered so clearly. Their wrinkles, the tiny white hairs, golden band on the ring finger. An elderly man appeared before me in the same blue and white checkered long-sleeve shirt I'd seen before in my vision. He wore khaki shorts with his long white socks that met his knees. His energy was calm and loving, and I asked him who he was, and he said that he lived nearby, and his name was Frank. "Why did you touch my neck?" was my next question. And he said that he was trying to protect me from the portal entity, that he had protected me for a while whilst I slept and lived in that bedroom. I thanked him. My next question was a common one that I'd grown accustomed to asking a spirit. "How did you pass?" He showed me an image of a familiar tree line and a winding road on the other side of the apartment buildings in Virginia. A red truck careered at high speed from around the corner. He showed me him standing in the tree line of these woods. The fluorescent headlights of the truck. Impact. The truck hightailing it out of the area. And a body left for dead. I gasped and I opened my eyes and told Kate everything I'd just seen. As I was talking about him showing me how he passed, I burst into tears. I was sobbing as Kate talked me through how to calm myself and what to do next. Frank was still talking to me and said, "Woman," but I ignored what he said. I was too focused on these tidal waves of emotions I was feeling. I was crying, but these emotions I were feeling weren't mine. I tuned into myself and saw the separation of the emotions I was feeling now versus the emotions that belonged to me. They were completely different. After I calmed myself, Kate taught me how to visualize the emotions of Frank separating from my body and being given to my spirit guides to be transmuted into light and love. It was important to excrete this energy, and it wasn't mine, so it didn't linger and mix into my energy field and emotions and weigh me down. And I also learned here that when you want to get rid of energy in this instance, it's important to mould it into something good so it doesn't linger in anyone else's space and affect them in any way. After I removed the man's emotions, I went back to talk to him. Kate had told me to ask him anything about the hit and run, any information that I could verify through a Google search. Green, woman, forest. I could see that the forest lined the road. It was one of the first things he'd shown me. It was familiar to me, right behind my apartment building. I was confused and everything felt mismatched. Deep down I knew I was missing something. Everything was laid out before me, yet I didn't know how to piece it all together. Before I ended the connection, I helped him cross over. I was so shaken by this session and conversation. This is the moment when it really hit me, that not only was I seeing images of their lives and getting to know them and sensing their personalities, but I was also seeing their last moments. No matter how they passed, I was seeing it. A person's final moments. This conversation and experience woke me up to the delicacy of what I do and the importance of meeting them with compassion while remembering to hold those energetic boundaries for myself. There would be more instances like that. People passing in traumatic ways that they wanted and needed help to process, and I had to be prepared for that. After the session, something kept bothering me. The woman. Frank had mentioned a woman whilst I was feeling his emotions and separating them from myself. I'd completely disregarded it and focused on the emotions I was feeling and reckoned with that. A woman had come up a second time, but it didn't make any sense. I tried to reason with myself and wipe it away, but the gnawing only grew stronger. I tuned back into Frank and asked him, "What is it about the woman? Why did you bring her up?" Frank showed me the same image of the hit and run that had happened to him. Then the woman. In my intuition, the image had split. There were two meanings to this image, what he was showing me. This had happened to Frank, or he had witnessed this happening to the young woman, and Frank had witnessed it. And because he'd witnessed it, he was killed. I didn't dive much further into this after the second conversation with Frank. It was also new to me at this moment, and this was the very first time I had spoken to a spirit who'd witnessed something like this and been killed because of it. I was overwhelmed and thanked Frank, then ended the connection after learning the young woman's name. Vanessa. Now fully into my abilities, I've learned that I don't get a full name but the first letter of the name. So her name could be Vanessa, since that's what came through at the time, or it could be another name starting with the letter V. I did what Kate had told me to do in these situations, try and find out as much as I can from the other side, and then Google it to see if I could find anything and possibly turn in information to law enforcement. I searched for hit and runs in Northern Virginia and scrolled until I found an article that caught my attention. An unknown young woman had been killed in a hit and run 1 year ago and left on the side of the road surrounded by forest. It happened in between familiar roads not 5 minutes away from my parents' apartment, and a street named Green. I was shocked. I texted Kate back about my second conversation with Frank and that I'd found an article that could be a match. She said it sounded like I'd found it. I then tried to find the article again to attach it to my story and see if they ever found out who the woman was and who had killed her. But now I can't find that article anywhere.
What do you think about that?
Intriguing yet confusing.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like I I would be hesitant myself to reach out on the basis of something like this to law enforcement. And I'm not saying that anyone else should do the same, but I think that would be a difficult thing. Because I think if you are correct, then all of a sudden, why do you know this? And I don't think they're going to think much of you saying the vibes told me. And if you're wrong, then, I guess there's no harm done there. You just get the brush off. But it's always seemed kind of loaded to me. I know when during some of the missing persons cases that I've bumped up against over the course of my life, psychics have tried to get involved, and I don't know, by and large, they were not met with much enthusiasm. I think probably just because there have been so many of them who are bullshit artists.
Well, nobody wants to end up like Etta Smith, do they?
Etta Smith.
So Etta Smith is a very famous case. Etta Smith was not psychic. I think she was like a secretary or something that just worked in a business. And she kept getting visions about a woman being murdered near where she lived. Like overpowering emotions and a connection to this murder. And so she went to the police and said, I think there's been a murder, and said, I think the body is in such and such an area, da-da-da-da-da. So the police went and they found a body. And it was the body of a murdered woman. And so they arrested her and charged her with murder, because their thought was exactly, how do you know where this body is? Of
course.
If you haven't killed her. I mean, they eventually let her go because there was absolutely no evidence to prove she had anything to do with it. And it turned out that she had been murdered by, I think it was her ex-boyfriend and his brother or something. They got him, but it was all, they wouldn't have found him if it wasn't for this woman. And I think it featured on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries in the 90s. So Etta Smith, she's interviewed in it as well, talking about what happened. It's a fascinating case because she says, I'm not psychic. I don't know why they asked me to help find her body, but they did, and I did. And I'm glad I did.
I'll be damned. Well, good for her. And I think it's great having the stones to reach out like that. I just don't know that I would.
I think she was just sick of being bothered by visions. I think it was the fact, Brennan, it wouldn't leave her alone. She kept being constantly. So she felt she had to do it to stop this harassment from the other side or whatever it was. But yeah, if you find the episode, I'm not sure which episode, but if you type Etta Smith and dead body, I'm sure you'll be able to track down articles about it, because she did loads of interviews, and like I say, I think she was on Unsolved. She's definitely on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, I think, talking about quite a big segment. Fascinating,
because my experience with that kind of thing is obviously, it's just anecdotal, but there was the fellow from Revelstoke, or the several fellows from Revelstoke who were trying to douse for minerals on a mining map, and past a certain point, their pendulums wouldn't work anymore. So they kind of reached out, sort of, I guess, like through meditation or something, and they were told that there is a missing person here, and that I am that missing person, and you should come to find me. But I also know someone else who claims that missing person is in a completely different part of town and underwater. And so then, of course, I approached a remote viewer, and, they gave me a completely different response, which wasn't either of those two things. Essentially, what I came to realize is, because they were not the only person to have what seemed to be a psychic message from this missing person drawing them south of town. But the other person actually did tell the police, and the police went and followed up the tip, and of course they found nothing. But essentially what it seemed to be is that there was something out there in the ether calling to people and saying, hey, come find me. Come alone, come find me. And I don't think anything that calls you out to the forest under false pretenses it has your best interest in mind. And of course, then I was contacted on Instagram, as we discussed, by someone through the Ghostery Guys account, someone with a pretty sizable account of their own. And they basically claimed that they had been contacted through a series of dreams by a young woman who was doing the same thing. She was saying, hey, I was kidnapped and I was killed. My mother, she really needs to know that that she can move on. And this spirit had told her all this information. But when I broke it down for this person who was telling me this, I said, have you noticed that all the information they gave you was very emotionally based? but there's no facts. There's nothing that you can follow up on. Like if they can give you all this information and they can tell you their first name, they can tell you their last name too. And the fact that they haven't suggests to me that something is trying to fuck with you to get you, because it was also trying to get her to come out to the forest, come out. I think it was a marsh. Come out to the marsh. I'm in the marsh. You have to find me. You have to find me and like set me free and set my family free from their grief or their worry. And I tried to tell this person, I said, I'm sorry. I know you wanted to help this person's coming to you, but I don't think they're being honest about who or what they are. And they just never responded to any of the messages.
What First Nation had that land?
Oh, I don't know. It was Pacific Northwest, so I'm not sure who was up there.
Might be worth delving into that and see if there's anything.
How do you mean?
In regards to see if there are any legend or stories in regards to it. There may
that's a good point.
There could be a trickster or an elemental that's been there for time immemorial, and therefore there may be local First Nation stories about a similar series of accounts or something that you could tie perhaps into that indigenous culture.
That's a great point. I hadn't considered that. Once this person stopped responding, I just kind of left it where it was. I actually ended up writing a Fear Daily story inspired by it, but that's as far as I ever took it.
It's worth it because the way it behaves, it would seem to be enticing, and you only have to look at most indigenous cultures around the world. They will always have stories about certain creatures that entice people away from the safety of the crowd or the safety of the village or the safety of the fire into lonely parts of the local area or to places where they can't be seen or heard. And it could be something like that. It'd be intriguing to find out more, I think.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I can't believe it hadn't occurred to me, but I'm going to see what I can do about looking into it.
I have my moment.
All right, so now for the thrilling conclusion. Meghan says, "This was my first encounter that was intense in the way of the unresolved business of spirits. Frank hasn't come to me since, and I never received any visit or communications from the woman, Vanessa. In my further experience with situations like these, when spirits want to reach out to help get things resolved, I'll feel it, and I'll know it. I'm grateful to Frank for protecting me all those years from the portal-making, not-so-nice entity, and I hope that the young woman's situation he showed me, and his own, has been resolved. I tuned recently to see if I could talk to Frank or Vanessa, but all I got was a feeling of peace, of resolution. If one day he or Vanessa come to me for help, I will gladly do it. Until then, if that ever happens, it's all about one word that sums up everything I've been learning about both worlds and how they intersect every day in all our lives. Timing. Winter bled into a frigid Saturday in March. Me and my sister were wrapped in our shit it's cold finest. And doing our Saturday routine of patronizing the neighborhood shops. After coffee, we landed at the vinyl and antique shop that she loved to frequent. Before my mentorship with Kate, I had learned how to center myself, so the antique side wasn't so overwhelming. And I never spoke to the owner about his haunted door either. We entered the store and I was greeted by the familiar excited feeling that prickled at my sides and made me want to believe the world was at my fingertips. But this excitement wasn't my own. It never had been in this store. But this trip was different. I wasn't tuned in. I had my psychic sunglasses on, if you will. This was part of learning energetic boundaries, so paranormal experiences wouldn't happen to me at random points in the day. It was all part of me learning how to phase in and out of the other side's business. But this super excitement was more charged than it had ever been, and I couldn't shake it no matter how many times I X'd out of the paranormal around me. So I listened. The spirits attached to the antiques were so excited, because they finally had the opportunity to tell the owner how much his care and attention meant to them. They showed me in images and feelings of the owner, being very particular about who takes home an antique, making sure they're going to a good home. From there, because of the spirits going to good homes that match what they needed to learn/heal/process, they're able to cross over. They described him as their personal ferryman to the afterlife. They wanted me to express their gratefulness to him. It was a busy Saturday in there, and I stood off to the side so I was out of the way of shoppers as I contemplated their request. This was the first time I was getting a request like this from spirits. I'd never imagined myself doing in-person on-the-spot readings in grocery stores or coffee shops. It gave me so much anxiety to think how I would go about it, but I also didn't want to disappoint the spirits. They truly were so excited to finally be able to tell them thank you, and honestly, I had signed on for these types of interactions and responsibilities. Well, of course, there's always a choice and free will with anything. I felt like this was something that I really wanted to do for them as a person and as a medium. As I stood in line with my sister and got closer to the register where the store owner stood at the register, images flashed in my mind like paintings. Feelings flooded my senses along with a word: Abel. A father figure stepping forward, but still hiding in the shadows. Then the picture of a lake house, the sense of 2 kids, and the eagerness for the owner to open a second location in the next 5 years. I was sweating and overwhelmed. The string lights seemed fluorescent. The oak-paneled wood cabinets that held the vinyl selections darkened and almost disappeared. I was able to calm myself until a woman stepped out from the back and approached the register. I knew that woman was his partner and that they were married, but that was about it. Once I laid eyes on her, the sensations and images became stronger, more colorful, more insistent, and more urgent. My sister was talking with the owner about her purchases, but I could barely make out what they were saying. It felt like I was battling to stay present while my sixth sense was being overstimulated. Once we left, I told my sister everything as we walked back home. I blurted out, "I have to tell him." My own sentence caught me off guard. Sure, I'd picked up small things here and there while I was around people, but I just closed the connection and kept going. This was the first time I'd ever said that I had to tell a person what I'd received. I knew I had to take this seriously and felt an ever-growing persistence to approach the owner about what I'd seen and heard. I volleyed back and forth with myself, my anxiety through the roof. I weighed if it was ethical to tell him and feared rejection or being called a fraud once I started to explain who I was and what I was able to do. And if he did, I knew I just had to take it at face value and leave. If he didn't want to hear about it or wasn't open, then I wasn't going to deliver the message. The spirit world would understand. Boundaries were to be kept, no matter what stage of life or afterlife you were in. The next day, I marched over to the vinyl shop 30 minutes until closing so I could catch him, hopefully without any customers. Lo and behold, a regular was there and talked his ear off until closing. I tried to wait as long as possible, but it was 6 p.m. sharp, and that was that. I left the store, stepping back into the cold bite of winter's last hurrah before spring. I stood on the curb feeling stupid and lame and defeated. The antique spirits were calling me back inside, begging me not to leave. I turned and saw the regular leave. This was my chance. I beelined it back into the store and said breathlessly, "Hi, I'm sorry I know you're closed, but can I ask you a question?" He nodded, and without breathing, I said, "I'm a psychic medium, and yesterday I received some messages for you that I thought you might want to hear if you're open to that." His expression was not one of disgust or rejection, just genuine curiosity. He said that he wasn't really sure if he believed in mediums and trailed off. I responded, "Listen, I know. There are a ton of fakes out there." He laughed and agreed, said he was open to hearing what I had to say. He had some interest in the paranormal and smoke cleansed his store with Palo Santo before opening every day. And he said he knew me as Shannon's sister. I smiled and clutched my purse for dear life as I began. Since the reading contained a lot of personal things, I won't go into much detail, but this cold reading was a game changer for me. It was filled with validation not only for myself, but for the vinyl owner. With this reading, I also started to receive my first symbols, images that spirits give me that are attached with meanings behind them. These symbols will be used by all spirits and can help them get their point across without having to expend too much energy to communicate with me. Also, using these symbols will help newly passed spirits to speak with me better, because images are easier for them, rather than full sentences. After I gave him his reading, he thanked me and I promptly left. I had so much adrenaline. I walked up and down the boulevard and back again to my apartment. This was my point of no return. I was in it now, and doing this. I was set to establish myself in my community and beyond as someone who would help others and spirits along in their journeys and be a force for positivity and healing. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you so much again for reading my story. I really wanted to write this new chapter down to remember for myself, but also as a thank you to the Ghost Story guys. The paranormal is such a huge part of my life, and the fact that I've been able to find solace and comfort in my abilities instead of fear and confusion is in huge part thanks to you. Brennan and Paul, you really helped me come out of my paranormal shell, which was a major step for me to even start seeking help and answers for all the activity I was experiencing. On top of reading my first story on your podcast and not only gaining your invaluable insight, but the insight of your paranormal community meant so much to me. It's hard to be taken seriously and believed and accepted with this line of work, and finding a home in TGSG, podcast, and the supportive community you've built has been a dream come true. Also, I wanted to really thank you for sticking up for the LGBTQIA+ community that I'm proudly part of. With the world seemingly going to shit, it is so uplifting and comforting to hear you guys speak up on your platform about the basic human rights that are in danger. Thank you so much for all that you do. I will always be listening. And Meghan, it is our honor to share this story, to share your story, to know that we had even a small part in helping you come to terms with this and access it and develop it is an unbelievable honor.
Just shows the real power we wield, Brennan.
That's right, the dangerous power we wield.
And it's also nice that Meghan feels comfortable enough to share this with us as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. No, it's a real gift. It's a real gift. And again, Meghan, we're honored by that. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone listening. Thank you to everyone who's been listening so far, who's been enjoying Meghan's story across these 4 episodes. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. We're coming up on the end of the 10th year. Or sorry, the beginning of the 10th year of Ghost Story Guys. January 17th will be 10 years. Or 10th season, at least. It works out weirdly, but it's the 10th season.
Champers all round.
I got some in my fridge.
Get the Lanson out.
Lanson?
It's my favourite of the lower end tipple.
Ah, okay. I got whatever was cheap champagne. I got to combine it with absinthe, make myself some Death in the Afternoons one of these days. On that note, we are going to head out again. Thank you so much to Meghan. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. And good luck in your adventures. I am grateful that you're out there helping folks because it's a difficult thing and a needed thing. And again, it's comforting knowing you're out there.
Very much.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey there, listeners. Before you reach for that skip 15 seconds ahead button, I promise you this isn't an ad. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about mental health. On this show, I've always tried to be as honest and open as possible about my struggles with depression and anxiety, because even though we've come a long way towards acknowledging the very real damage these things can do, there is still way too much lingering stigma about reaching out for help. And when you start to feel like there's no help, it's easy to start feeling like there's no hope. But Paul has joined me today to remind you there is always hope and there's always help.
We're not going to try and talk you out of self-harming right now, because we know that's not how it works. Instead, what we wanted to do was tell you something now and hope that should things get bad, you'll remember it and make a phone call or send a text message before you make any permanent decisions. As someone who knows all too well just how important mental health can be, it's never too late to reach out.
In Canada, the number to call is 133-456-4566. In the USA, the new number to call is 988. That's 988.
In the UK, the number to call is 116123 or text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. In Australia, the number to call is 131114.
However bad shit seems, it will pass. And no matter what your brain might be telling you at any given moment, and believe me when I say I know this intimately, there are people who love you and people who care deeply about how you treat yourself. Should a time come when you find yourself despairing, please know that we've both been where you are, and there is a way back to the world. Take care. Welcome back. Thanks as always to my friend and co-host, the inimitable Paul Bestel, the paranormal Johnny Carson himself, host of Mysteries and Monsters. Paul, what's coming up on M&M?
I'm delighted to welcome our good friend Adam Lynch of The Weekly Creep and Houston Strange to dive into some of Texas's stranger stories. So we take a trip down to Galveston to uncover its haunted history and the reasons for that, along with a couple of UFO sightings, a smattering of Bigfoot stories, and a few other strange and spooky occurrences in the Lone Star State.
Very cool. I am, of course, Brennan Storr, and I guess I run this shit.
Hooray!
Essentially. I don't know how else to phrase that. We're coming up with a new way of doing the end of the show. We'll figure it out. But yes, and you can find me as Largely the Truth on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. And of course, you can find my horror fiction show, Fear Daily, everywhere fine podcasts live. And like we said at the top of the show, none of this happens without our patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. You are the lifeblood of Ghost Story Guys. And of course, if you want to get access to ad-free early releases, bonus conversations between myself and Paul, extra spooky episodes, our monthly live stream, and our Ghost Force shoutouts, click the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. That's patreon.com/ghoststoryguys for bonus shows, ad-free releases, and so much more. Paul, my friend, any guest spots coming up?
Yes, I shall be recording an episode of Into the Fray next month.
Ah, very cool.
So that will be out at some point for people. So yes, that is my next upcoming appearance on that before I try to do as many interviews as I can in the next 4 weeks so I can do bugger all over Christmas. As I like it.
A good idea. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I don't think I have any spots coming up, although, of course, Paul and I were both on Into the Fray behind the paywall, and that video is also available to our patrons if you sign up at the $5 level. If you want to pick up some Ghost Story Guys merch, head to our website at ghoststoryguys.com. You'll find all kinds of cool stuff there, t-shirts, mugs, stickers, whatever your heart desires, you'll find it at ghoststoryguys.com, as long as what your heart desires is tchotchkes with our stuff on it. Our theme song, of course, Radio, Into the Darkness We Go, is composed and performed by Peter Kursov of Pizzanta Music. Find more from him by searching for Pizzanta Music wherever you get your tunes. And I think that's going to do it.
We'll be back next week, but until then,
Into the darkness we go.
we're big in Hungary.
Worldwide. Mr. and Mr. Worldwide. Had to think about that one for a second.
If you're feeling a bit sort of herbally refreshed, shall we say, and you want to think, what's the strangest children's film from the 1970s I could possibly try to watch in this state? It's Dougal and the Blue Cat, which is the film of the Magic Roundabout, which is essentially like the Beatles take acid and become children's characters even more than the Yellow Submarine.
I am looking at the cover of this film, and yeah, this looks like the masquerade scene from True Detective, the tape that Woody Harrelson cries while he's watching. Yeah, that's what this looks like. This looks like it was taken from that videotape.
Great film. One for all the family, my friend.
There you go, Dougal and the Blue Cat. Well,
can you hear that? Thing is, there's 3 cats on the bed and none of them's wearing a bell. So one of the other cats must have sneaked in and I'm not aware of it. How's that in? Anyway.